Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 167 of the Debt Free Dad podcast. So do you catch yourself buying stuff that you don't need? I think we all have. Maybe you struggle with impulsive and wasteful spending habits. And if you do, I can pretty much guarantee that you're not alone. Now, today we're going to be talking about why we actually buy things that we don't need, and hopefully share some tips with you today on how to prevent, limit it, and maybe even stop it altogether. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Debt Free Dad podcast with Brad Nelson. Brad and his co-hosts experience the anxiety of living paycheck to paycheck before learning the fundamentals of financial security. They are now on a mission to empower regular people to pay off their debt for good and enjoy happier, less stressful lives. Keep listening for inspirational interviews, tips, tricks, and practical advice to gain financial freedom.
Hey, how's everyone doing today? You can find us on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. Just search Brad Nelson, Debt Free Dad. And as always, guys, welcome to today's show. Remember to get all the resources, show notes, and links for today's show. You can head over to balancedcents.com/167. That is BALENCEDCENTS.com/167. So, guys, before we get to today's main content on the show, I want to give a shout out. I just got this message today. I know I shared with you guys. Let me get that out right. I know I shared this with you guys earlier today in our podcast chat on Facebook Messenger, but just wanted to give a huge shout out to Devin, or it might be Devon. I'm not sure how he pronounces it, but he is from England. He says, I listened to you for a while, and it gave us motivation to become totally debt-free outside of our mortgage. He says, love the podcast. And then I responded. I said, hey, thanks for reaching out. And I just asked him where he was from, and he's from England. And he says, I listen to your podcast every other day. Really helped me pay off all of my debt and stay motivated throughout the process. And just wanted to give a huge shout out, guys. That was pretty awesome. Love getting some of these messages. And lately we've been getting a lot from all over the place. Japan, Scotland, Ireland, now England. We even have some Roots members, a few from Australia. We've got a couple from the UK that are in there right now. So super, super cool. And then also, guys, on top of that, I was at a Milwaukee Brewer game a week ago, day before Easter. And if you're listening to this, probably a few weeks later. This is the first time this has ever happened to me. So I think I'm a big deal now, right? Anyways, so I'm at the Milwaukee Brewer game. I'm walking down the aisle back to my seats, and someone stops me, and they're like, hey, you're the debt-free dad guy. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I listen to your podcast every week. He's like, it's awesome. So the guy at the Milwaukee Brewer game who I didn't get your name, thanks for stopping me, man. You made my day and my night. And now I've got a little bit of an ego. No. I kid. But seriously, it's been so much fun, as this podcast has become more and more popular and we are getting more and more listeners. The messages have been super, super cool because we put a lot of work into this, and it's just awesome that it's helping a lot of people.
If you ever take it on the road, I'll be more than happy to go to Scotland and Ireland weekend.
Yeah, right. Sure. Those would be fun trips, right? Katie, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, you probably don't just run into Dave Ramsey at a Brewers game. So
We're just regular people.
Just normal people here, right? Normal people. Yeah, good times. That was a lot of fun. So, guys, today we're talking about how to stop buying stuff that you don't need. Now, you guys have never had this issue before, right? There's never been one time you've bought something that you don't need, right?
I am packing and moving.
I'd be lying
right
if
now,
I said yes.
and I have way too much stuff that I do not need right now.
Yeah. Packing and moving is a sure way to really get close and personal with your purchasing habits. There's no question.
Yep. Where did this come from?
Yeah, we moved a couple of years ago, and I thought we had done a pretty good job getting rid of stuff, and I was like, there's no way that we're going to fill up that moving truck, no more than twice. I think we filled it up 4 times. I couldn't believe the stuff that we had packed away in different rooms and and different storage spaces. You just start pulling all this stuff out. You're like, where the heck does this come from, right? But guys, I'm kind of dealing with this right now, and this kind of, this is a little bit of a different topic that we're going to talk about today. But just, with the loss of my wife and emotional stuff, emotional purchases, man, I was messaging Ryan today. I will admit, looking at a different vehicle, and I was like, "Talk me out of this." and
Ryan is not the person to talk to for being talked out of a car.
Right. And it's a totally emotional purchase. There is nothing rational about it whatsoever. But as I'm, grieving and mourning my late wife, it's like, man, I'm just sad a lot. And it's like, you see these things and it's like, it tricks you into thinking like that's going to be the solution, right? That's going to be the thing that's going to make me feel better. But it's only going to be temporary. It's going to be very temporary. But I say that like this is a little bit of a different topic, but is it? Because I think you could, not that I want to compare grief to a bad day or grief to, you're just kind of going through a rut in life or whatever it might be. But it's all emotion that goes along with those things. And when you're emotional, man, that emotion can play some serious tricks on you. And I am like, being so cautious right now. And I think I did buy a bubble machine for my daughter that was not planned. It was totally awesome, by the way. And there's been a couple of other things, but nothing big yet. And, but man, I really have had to watch it. There's no question.
Yeah, I think, for us, and so I agree with you. And for us, this is 100%. We were emotional spenders. I was spending money. You kind of are bored, you're unhappy, you're feeling like, well, if I just get this thing, I will be happy. You're equating stuff with happiness. And so then you get it and it fills the void for sometimes an hour, sometimes a day, sometimes a week or a month, but it fades away. And then suddenly you're like, oh man, that didn't make me happy. What else would make me happy? That was 100% our whole life of living in debt, 100%. We were very much, and I'm still probably to some degree like that. That's why we budget my stupid money, we call it, because I just can spend it on whatever I want and there's no judgment, but yeah, I think that is that's challenging for a lot of people. I think if people really sit down and think about why they're spending money, I think there's a lot of people who would realize that that's why they're doing it.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I want to point out, Ryan, though, and this is sort of on topic, but sort of off topic, is at least you have it in the budget. And you're further proving that you can put stuff like that in your budget. It's not a recipe to say no to everything. It's a recipe to say yes. And you're admitting to some degree that there's going to be some dumb purchases that happen. So why not just build it into your budget?
Hey,
and that
they're
way
not
it
dumb
doesn't
to me.
Kill. Well, but you call it your stupid money, so I'm referring to the term you used. But
I'm gonna guess maybe his wife.
The point is
like that.
Maybe. Yeah. And his mind, she's got stupid money too. Who knows? But I think the point is that you can still have fun, still say yes to things, but you do have to keep it under control. And I think that's the gist of this: is what's a need, what's a want. And there was a book written several years ago, Juliet Shore, I think is her name. I can't remember the title of it, but somebody had done a research study on what's a need and what's a want. And having a microwave in your house was considered a need. Having 3 televisions in the home was considered a need. And we can go on a long list of what is and what isn't, but it all starts with really, really asking yourself, what are the necessities in life? And I think if you will start with that perspective, you'll realize that most of the things that we look at, we consider, we buy, really are wants. At the end of the day, you can live without it. And that's, I think, the beginning of any discussion is what is a need. Now, you can debate that all day long. And I know that for some people, they feel like they need things because they want to be accepted by others. They want to be thought of as somebody or cool. So a lot of times we buy things that we will argue as a need to impress somebody else. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Yeah.
Well, go look at any car commercial. I mean, watch any car commercial. There's not one car commercial I watch where everyone's like, a car drives by and everybody's turning their back. Like, that's a dumb car. They're all like, oh my gosh, John must got it going on. They're all like just amazed at this car he bought, and that's why, because they're buying into that being accepted and the way people view you.
Yeah.
So there was a major big box retailer, won't give the name, about 15 years ago, ran a commercial. And it showed a man riding a lawnmower, cutting his grass. And he stops and he looks at his watch and he says, 22 minutes, beat that. And then they cut to his neighbor across the street who's got a push lawnmower. And his head just kind of drops. And the next thing you know, you see him in this big box retailer with 0% financing, and how great and wonderful it all is. And that's sort of another example, Ryan, is do you really, and this was a small yard. I mean, with my yard, I've got to have a riding lawnmower. But I don't gotta, but it would take me 3 weeks to cut the grass. All right. So it's a luxury. Let's put it that way.
I would call that a need.
Advice here. Okay.
I would call that a need.
It's 2 acres. It's 2 acres.
Oh my
here,
gosh.
then I've got 2 acres. So I have 4 acres altogether.
Yeah.
And it's like that. So I could do it, but I'd be taking lots of breaks and I wouldn't be working. But anyway, the point is 2 neighbors, one across the street, one challenging the other. It's the whole keeping up with the Joneses is exactly what that commercial. And I used to show it to my students and say, this is how marketing affects you. It plays with your minds. It's how can I be better than my neighbor? Oh, to do so, I've got to have a riding lawnmower. And so just be careful when you see those commercials, Ryan. You're exactly right. And be careful of, Brad, the emotions, because that's exactly what those marketing flyers, commercials, whether it's TV, radio, YouTube, anything are designed to do, is to act on your emotion, because they know that if they can get your emotions, they can move your emotions, they can get you to go buy. And that's the job of a marketer, is to convince you to move something from the need column to a want column to a need column, so you'll go buy it. Yeah. Sorry, that was long-winded.
No. I think one recommendation, Chris, I would have if you're really feeling guilty about that riding lawnmowers is to get yourself a couple of these goats.
Yes, with a goat.
You can get a goat, and they can cut your grass for you. I had to hold up
People
this goat.
Made businesses around that idea.
Yeah, right. Too funny. I had to hold up a goat. Some people, some really funny people sent me a goat as a joke, and I just showed it on YouTube. So you'll have to go check that out. But I think, we hit it on the head though. The number one need, I think, human need that we all have is to be accepted or be validated. I heard an interesting argument a while back ago, and I don't remember it exactly, the exact specifics, but it was somewhere along the lines of, if we could just get rid of the majority of stuff, how much more happier people would be. Because of the stuff that you're talking about, Ryan talking about, Chris, you're talking about it, Kate, you're talking about it. It's just, it never feels like it's enough, whether it's the marketing or advertising telling us that what we have isn't good enough, or we need more, or it's someone on social media that we're comparing ourselves to now that we need that stuff. Now we need to, go on this vacation, or we need to have that car, or we need to have that house, or we need to have those clothes, or whatever it might be. Like if you did away with the majority of those distractions, how much more content that you would be in your life. And I think, that's what I think a lot of us end up falling for. Like I mentioned the bubble machine that I bought. I saw that on TikTok. If I wouldn't have saw that on TikTok or from some market, my daughter would never have had the bubble bazooka. And there's a lot of other products that are out there like that the only reason you have them is because of either social influence, or you just happened upon an ad and you're like, all of a sudden, I need to have that. And I think a big part of controlling your impulsive and emotional purchases is all part of just what we talk about here. It's having a plan, having short-term, long-term goals. What are the things that we're working towards? And we're going to get to some of those things after the commercial break. I think the other one too, that we haven't gotten to, which is my last one here on our list today, is the fear of missing out. I think FOMO gets a lot of people too. And you see this a lot more, I think, with like experiences, vacations and concerts and, sporting events. In fact, we did a study on sporting events and spending with credit cards. And I think, what was it, guys? It was like, I don't know if Chris and Katie were on at that time, but it was like something like 4 or 5 times more people were willing to spend on a credit card versus using cash for like a sporting event ticket. And, a big part of what they play on is, fear of missing out. You watch these credit card commercials and it's like, you only live once, like this is your ticket to fun. And, we see this stuff time and time again. And if you think you're immune to it, you're not. I mean, none of us are. I mean, if you're on social media, if you're getting email, if you're watching television, if you're talking to friends even, we're all getting hit with this type of social influence and marketing all the time.
And anytime you're on social media, even if you just think about something, all of a sudden it's going to appear on your screen and remind you over and over and over. So they are definitely coming for you to buy stuff.
It's creepy, isn't it?
It is.
I always feel like somebody's watching me.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, you're 100% right, Katie. We do that. It happens to us all the time. We'll look at something and like a day later, I'm like, it's on my Facebook. It's on here. I'm like, it's just creepy.
It is. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it is listening and, they're hearing some of that stuff. It is weird.
Right. And one thing that I learned, especially when I lived in Florida during hurricane season, was if your home was about to be destroyed, what would you take with you? And I went through my apartment at the time and I had a very small bag with some things for my grandparents that just couldn't be replaced. So they had that sentimental value. My laptop, because it had everything on it, and a few other things. But I'm like, if I had to run out of my house in a fire, in a flood, in a hurricane, whatever, like what really actually matters in the long run.
Yeah. And we're going to take a quick commercial break because, Katie, you hit on a good point. We're going to follow up on that as soon as we come back here. So the Totally Awesome Debt Freedom Planner is helping so many people make consistent progress with their finances. Whether that be building emergency funds, paying down bills, budgeting, tracking paydays, saving up for larger purchases, goal planning, and planning for those irregular yearly expenses that always seem to catch you by surprise. Now, the Debt Freedom Planner will help you take the stress out of managing your money. And if the thought is running through your mind, hey, I just need to have a simple tool to get my finances together, this planner is perfect for you. Head over to therealdebtfreedad.com, click on the Debt Freedom Planner in the menu at the top of the page, and order your Debt Freedom Planner today. All right, guys, we're back. And this is completely off topic. My son right now, as we speak, is getting a perm.
Oh, he's finally doing it? That's awesome.
His mom just sent me a picture of him sitting in the chair with a he's got like, I want to show it on the screen. Look at
that. That's awesome.
Oh, so he wants like this curly hair. Oh man,
that's awesome.
I'm looking forward to seeing what this is gonna look like.
That's awesome.
The key is not to brush it out or comb it out. Just wash it and leave it.
Let it go. Let it go. All right, so let's talk about some tips on how you can kind of clean some of this impulsive and emotional spending up and stop buying a bunch of crap that you don't need. I think number one, like you were kind of getting to, Katie, is getting clear on what you want and really, and this is hard, really figuring out what it is that you need to be happy. Chris, you mentioned it about needs versus wants, and this takes time. I think it's taken me a lot of time to figure out some of that stuff. And this is why I agonized a lot more over purchases, not in a negative way, but just in a thoughtful way, more in an intentional way of, do I need this? Do I want this? And not only needs or wants, but also what's the time investment for some of these purchases that you're going to make? Because if I say yes to these purchases over here, or this hobby, or this investment of what I'm thinking is going to be fun, that means less time of doing other things that I like to do, right? So I have taken a lot more time being intentional, not only with just the cost, but bringing the thing into my life and how much time it's actually going to take to use it. I mean, you think about larger purchases like campers. It's amazing to me how many people will spend hundreds of dollars a month on a camper payment and only camp, especially up here in the Midwest, maybe 3 or 4 weekends out of the year. And it's like, holy crap, you're spending that much money every single month. And that thing is just sitting in your driveway most of the time, not even being used. Like, you think about some of those, our snowmobiles up here in Wisconsin. Everyone thinks that we got snow all the time. Well, not all the time. And sometimes those snowmobiles just sit because there's no snow. And you think about how much money you're spending every month on a snowmobile that's not doing anything. So, some of these purchases that you're making, there is that opportunity cost there, not only just on the cash part of it, but the time part too.
So you use the word opportunity cost. And me being a teacher, having taught economics, I love that word. For those of you who don't know what it means, it basically means when you make a decision, what's the value of the next best thing that you gave up? What else could you have done with your time, your money, etc.? And I think this is where having a why comes in. And I think that's what you mean by what makes you happy. Understanding your why. Now, for my wife and I, kind of goes back to something you were talking about before the commercial break. We value experiences, but the experiences that we want to have don't come from a fear of missing out. I would much rather go on a great vacation, which right now we're trying to plan another one for January next year. That's going to be super cool if we pull it off. But I would much rather do that for 3 weeks than to buy stuff. So anytime I look at buying something, I always ask myself, and I've done this for a long time now, does buying this bubble machine help me have an experience?
Right.
And 99% of the time, the answer is no. And the answer for me has become real easy at that point. It's stuff. And this is going to keep me from whatever it is the next experience that I want to have. And so I got to say no to it. And I think the first tip is understanding your why, and that takes time too. And then every purchase, is this going to help me accomplish my goal or not? And then that should be the end of the discussion. And that, again, like you said, takes practice.
I think too, I don't think a lot of people realize what makes them happy. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's just, you float around in this, like, kind of a lot of what we just said about human needs, impulse purchases, fear of missing out. You kind of get this jumbled idea. And for us, like, I think what we found is everything we bought was really not for us. It was for other people's opinions of us. It really wasn't for, like, I think, Brad, you and I talked about that car today, like, talked me out of it, and I like the truck I bought a few years ago. It's like one of the first vehicles I've ever bought that was truly for me because I wanted it. Like, I love my truck, but all the other cars I had before that, it was just for, like, it had to have leather seats. Why? Well, because that's fancy. And then people will think like, ooh, he's got leather seats. It wasn't because I really wanted leather seats. And,
right.
So I just really think that is, getting clear on what you want. I think you really got, if you ask yourself, how am I happy? Just look around at the stuff, and is the stuff represent you and it was for you, or is it representing like other people?
I know when I was starting to get out of debt, thanks to the Roots program, Brad's wait 24 hours rule was very important for this. It's like, do I really need this? Do I have to have this right now? Because a lot of purchases were impulse purchases, emotional spending, whatever. If it was a good day, if it was a bad day, if whatever, it was just like, oh, it's there, I'm going to buy this and that'll make me happy. And I have probably saved hundreds of thousands of dollars just not spending money because of that one wait 24 hours. I have a list of things that I look at and I'm like, okay, I actually might want to do that, but then I budget for it and save up for it and watch if it goes on sale or something like that.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I'll share mine. I think one of the things, or I guess one of the filters that I've built over time is I like time freedom. Man, if it takes time away, I likely am not buying it or doing anything with it, because after getting out of the whole 40, 50, 60-hour work week, working for somebody else and now running my own business and being debt-free, and being able to control and kind of determine how much money I want to make and build a lifestyle around that. Man, the amazing amount of time that I now get to, that I used to spend with my wife, the amazing amount of time that now I get to spend with my kids, the amount of time that I've been able to take off of work to really focus on kind of, the current situation that we're dealing with right now in our household and focusing on our kids, and focusing on me. I think there is no purchase, there is no thing that would replace that time and being fully present during such a difficult time in our lives. And if I would have had to go right back to work because financially we needed the money to come into the household and, I had to sit here and stress about money, man, I can sit here and just think about how much more miserable I would be. And because of that, like today, I was just emotionally spent. So I just laid down for 30 minutes. I just hung out, and it's just like I needed to take a break. But now, even moving forward and whatever life that I start to build moving forward, having the freedom of time, being able to take time off work, being able to take time off and spend it with people that you love and things that you love to do. I mean, there's so many people who just say, I work too much and I never get to do what I want. It's like, well, just get your butt out of debt, right? Stop paying everybody else your money and you get to earn some of that time back. And it makes you think differently about the stuff that you're bringing into your life because the payments is robbing a lot of that time from you, because you're having to go to work to pay for it all. So other thing you want to think about too is what triggers you. I've mentioned this a ton of times on this podcast. One of the things that always triggers me in spending money and busting budgets and spending money on stuff that I don't need is boredom. When I get bored, especially during the wintertime, I tend to get distracted by purchases that I feel are going to keep me busy, right? Now, that's gotten better over the years, but there are still times that it definitely gets to me. Is there any, I know you guys mentioned quite a few on the show today. Is there any others that you guys have?
Triggers?
Yeah, any other triggers?
Oh, yeah, I had triggers all the time. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't, from the time I was I can't even remember. I remember getting an allowance, and before I had it in my hand, it was gone because I like spending money. And to this day, as much we don't have debt, we have all the, we're doing all the right things, but you can't just take that out of people. It doesn't necessarily just go away. I quit smoking years and years ago, but every once in a while someone lights one up and I'm like, oh my God, just blow it in my face. It's just the smell of it for that split second. It's just like, man, I just remember how that felt. So yeah, for me, it's, going into Lowe's, Home Depot, that sort of stuff. If I go in there for just I got to go in there for a very specific thing. Cause if I go in there for just I'm just going to stop in there, I'll just buy dumb stuff. Again, budgeted, but just I need this tool. And I'll find it, a year later and be like, yeah, I never used it because I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lowe's, Home Depot, those sorts of places for me, I have to avoid unless there's a specific reason.
Quote of the show, by the way, blow it in my face.
You can't take that out of me.
I think, Ryan, you've touched on something that maybe Brad should be a podcast episode of itself somewhere down the line, is you get yourself out of debt. All right. You're doing a budget, you're investing, you're saving for retirement, pay your house off, all of those things. It doesn't change the fact that you still want to spend money. It doesn't mean that the financial decisions go away. And sometimes you got to be careful. And Brad, you and Ryan could probably agree with this. When you have no debt, it's sometimes easier to think about spending even more money.
Sure.
And so the challenges never go away. New ones pop up in places of other ones. But I think that's where a level of maturity comes along, and having goals, knowing who you are, what's your why, always helps. If I do get off course a little bit, get back on. So are there triggers? Yes, they're always there, and they're going to change over time. But having goals, knowing where you want to go, I think helps with that.
I know when I was young, similarly to Ryan, when I had money, it was burning a hole in my pocket. I needed to go buy gummy worms or snacks or whatever. And the Scholastic Book Fair was just killer.
Oh, those book fairs, man.
Yeah. But then I think my entrepreneurial spirit started back then because I'm like, what can make my life easier? Pay my sister to go do my chores for me. And then later in life, it's very clear, evident that she was really good at making and saving money and not having debt. And I was just like, you know what? This will make my life easier and I will pay someone else to do it. And maybe I should have maybe not had to have delegated so much of that.
Oh, that's funny. Gummy worms. I'm more of a
You bought
gummy.
back part of your time.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Did you do anything though with it, with the time when you bought it back?
No.
But you said gummy worms. I'm more gummy lifesavers are so good.
Gummy lifesavers are really good, but don't waste your money on gummy Skittles. It was not. what I
No,
was
not good.
expecting
All right.
it
I'll remember
to
that
be.
next time.
No.
All right, last one we want to talk about here today is just get comfortable being you. And I think, this all kind of comes down to not only determining what it is that's going to make you happy, but being truly comfortable with what's going to make you happy. Like, I drive, I've got two older vehicles. I got an 05 Ford Explorer. I've got an 06 Chevy Silverado. And I just, I'm sure people look at that and they're like, this guy's a financial coach and that's the stuff he's driving. And I don't really care. Like the vehicle I was looking at today would be one of those vehicles that would be for me. It wouldn't be for anybody else. Like I don't really care what anyone would think about it. But these two vehicles perfectly work just fine. And yeah, they're not the fanciest looking. One of them's got actually they both have some rust on them. But I'm comfortable with it because again, it goes back to that filter that I've built for my life of, I want more time and freedom in my life. And if I go out and get more expensive vehicles or put more money towards those things, it takes away from putting that money towards things that buys me more time in the future. And, I've got to be really careful with that. But I love this quote from Morgan Housel. If you have not checked out this book, I would recommend that you check it out. It's called The Psychology of Money, Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed, and Happiness. And Morgan says this. He says, people with enduring personal finance success, not necessarily those with high incomes, tend to have a propensity to not give a damn what other people think about them. And guys, what do you think about that quote? How does that apply to your finances now? And that mindset, do you think?
I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I really don't. I could care less. I'm not trying to impress anybody, but it took me a while to get to that point. And real quick, Brad, one thing. Remember when you and I were at a conference in Texas? There was a rapper there.
Yeah.
Who did a song called I Ain't Got No Car Note. Remember that?
I remember that.
So you talking about your two old cars makes me think of that. At least you ain't got a car note. Remember that.
The best car is a paid off car, right? So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who was that rapper? Who was that rapper?
D. Williams, D something. We're trying to pull it up.
Oh yeah, there it is. D1.
D1. He also had that song. I just finished paying Sally Mae off.
Yeah,
that one too.
We'll have to play some D1 on an upcoming episode because those are some really good songs. If you have not heard those, you should check them out. They're good. All right.
Definitely not thinking about what other people think. That's been probably the biggest part of the last 5 years of this journey is personally, financially, doesn't matter what other people think.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that. We had you on as a guest and you were mentioning and talking about you were in a past relationship where that was kind of a big thing, was fitting in and spending lots of money on certain things or doing certain things, right? Was that kind of how it went?
Having my hair and nails and clothes and going on trips that everyone else was going on. So we had to, play the part as well. And I'm just like, now I do not care. And it is the most freeing thing ever.
Yeah. And look at you are now.
And that's the important part.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, almost 5 years later, $7,000 now paid off. Is that what you're at now?
And actually, my tax return just dropped in my account today. I'm like, all right, what am I paying off next? So I'm getting there.
Boom. There. I love it. That's awesome.
Let's talk about that, baby. Let's talk about your money. Let's talk about all the good things, all the bad things that baby, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
All right, that sound means it's time for the celebrations of the show. And today we're kicking it off with Katarina. Katarina says, today my last debt payments post, and I am officially debt-free. She says, I plan to save 50% of my income towards savings rates starting with my next paycheck in 2 weeks. I lived without that money before when it went to debt, or she calls it the debt monster. I can live without touching it now, and it's going towards the future me. Katarina, that is an awesome accomplishment. A Roots member, one of two in the last, I think, month that have reached debt freedom now. That is awesome. Congratulations.
Very, very good job, Katarina. And Sandy Kurtz Jarrett has a Katie moment here. She was looking at her budget and realized she had an extra $120 to assign, so she gets to pay off some more debt.
Yeah, I love that. Great job.
And Amanda Lepak paid off another $2,000 in debt this past month. Way to go.
Yeah, that is awesome.
And Tracy Bratz filled my first monthly budget out, stayed within grocery limit the first week and over, all just being a lot more conscious of what I'm doing with my money.
Yeah, there you go. And it's all about creating those new habits, those new behaviors, those new choices, Tracy. So that's a great win. So congratulations to all of you, and especially to all of you who are working so hard at reaching financial freedom. And remember, if you're just getting started with our podcast, or maybe you've been listening for some time and you're interested in how you can get started on the road to financial freedom, head over to our website at balancesense.com and sign up for our free Life Without Payments workshop, where I'm going to show you the first steps that have helped tens of thousands of people just like you and I kick financial stress and worry for good.
Thanks for listening to the Debt Free Dad podcast. Connect with us on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at Brad Nelson Debt Free Dad. If you found value in today's episode, please leave a rating and review. We so appreciate it. For resources, show notes, and links mentioned in today's show, visit balancedsense.com. That's balancedsense.com. Catch you next week.